afternoon's session. I hope you all found something for lunch that you enjoyed, and also had a time to do a bit more networking and build on the discussions that we started this morning. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the sessions this afternoon and to continue the dialogue and the discussion, we're just going to lift our eyes a little bit to the future and look at the horizon. And if you've enjoyed today with its mixture of interactive sessions and presentations, this gives you a kind of a very small flavour of what happens for 3 days in May at a national level that IRMS are responsible for as a national conference. So I'd like to hand over to Ren, who is the conference director, who will give you a little bit more of a flavour of what's coming up next May in Brighton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon. There should be a slide coming up, so oh, fantastic. There should be another bit on the slide. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much. Everyone has hopefully seen lots of this branding. Information superheroes. So if information is the glue that holds an organisation together, and as we've talked so much about today, informs our decision making, especially when we've got some tough decisions to make. The people who are involved in the day-to-day management and the overall governance of that information are the superheroes, the information superheroes that we're making this conference about. Now, this is my first year as conference director, so I'm glad to say I've had permission to sort of change a few things, to put some oil in the wheels, and we've come up with what we hope is a very exciting programme. We've got some really good keynotes, including some legends from the world of records management who are going to be talking about a book they wrote about 15 years ago, but also people talking about privacy, especially as we've got the new EU General Data Protection Regulations on the horizon, and also talking about data and information analytics, which is, I think, one of the key big themes that's emerging today, how we leverage the data we have for wisdom and insight. We have a number of themes, can't see them all there, but these are the themes. We're going to have fundamentals, what's records management, the nuts and bolts, so it's good learning side. But we're also going to have a skills session, which is to help information professionals understand the other softer skills they need around things like program and project management, budget management, things like this. We're going to have a session called Horizon, which is what's coming up in terms of legislation and also new emerging technologies. We're going to have another session called Colleagues, because information professionals are superheroes, but they don't work in isolation. So I want people to come and talk to them from financial control, from IT, from facilities management, from all the other surrounding areas that have a stakeholding in how information's managed, web content management, for example, so that they can have a shared dialogue about how they can all help each other within an organisation. We're going to be holding the first ever conference Fringe, which is going to be starting on the Sunday afternoon, a more relaxed thing, where one of the great things I've noticed today is there's a lot of stories that people have, and it's finding an informal way without necessarily asking someone to come on a stage and tell those stories and share and network. So we're going to have a relaxed Fringe event where people can talk whilst having some fun. Not quite sure what's going to evolve, but we're going to ask people maybe to put together a records management game show, maybe have some party games, maybe have a bit of a makery where you can do something maybe with Lego, but you've got to talk about information security and records management. So lots of good things going on in the Fringe, and then at the press of one more button away, ta-da, we have a draw for delegates here today. If you register by the end of the year, your name goes in the hat for a room upgrade, which in Brighton on the seafront is quite a nice thing, and a bottle of champagne to be there on your arrival. So I look forward to hopefully seeing many of you at the conference in Brighton. There's some wonderful content, there's some wonderful speakers. There's another theme, of course, which I haven't mentioned, which is projects. So lots and lots of case studies about what people have done in their organisation, but also case studies from people who are developing new regulation, for example, what's emerging in terms of the new NHS Code of Practice for records management and things like that. So I'm around all afternoon and this evening, so any questions, call me and I'd love to have a chat. Claire, thank you.
Thanks very much, Ren. I hope that's whetted your appetite for things happening next May. We're now going to move on to our second keynote of the day, and I'm very pleased to introduce Heather Jack, who might be known to some or many of you already. She is, again, another legendary figure within not only Scottish records management, but across the UK as well, and someone who, like Alison this morning, passionately believes in their professional roles that they have and is a keen advocate and evangelist for the value that information alignment with business requirements bring. So without further ado, I shall introduce Heather.
Okay. So, can I just say before I launch into all about people and information and business, which I am passionate about, can I just say I am just so chuffed that I'm standing here and this has happened. You know, it was an ambitious thing. It was an ambitious thing to bring a big group of information people and a big group of business people together to basically start to get minds working, to see information in business context and to see what can be achieved, particularly in the days of austerity. And the amazing things you can do with technology. If we get those right and we get the people and the information into that mix too, I do believe that's a big step forward to addressing how the heck we make the change that we have to make with very little money and very little resources. I do believe there are big changes coming, and I really hope from today that you can go away and keep talking and keep thinking. I spoke to someone just at lunchtime there, and they said to me, do you know what, it's been thought-provoking. If you go away and your thoughts have been provoked on both sides of that table, the information table and the business table, well, do you know what? We've achieved what we wanted to do. So thank you so much for being here. And now I shall continue. So what am I talking about? Many people ask me that quite often. In this instance, at the end of the day, this is all about business transformation, and public sector transformation is about trying to do things smarter, with less money, to have much better outcomes for people, to prevent bad stuff from happening, rather than having to react to it when it does happen. For all sorts of reasons, for the public that we serve, the citizens we serve, and also for the people and the budgets within our organisations, because we've got obligations we have to deliver, and how are we going to deliver them? And as far as I'm concerned, public service is all about people, all about people. It's right at the heart of it, and so long as you have people at the heart of that, then you've got a much better chance of having really good success. It's got to be from the beginning of that transformation all the way out the other side to business as usual. So let's just look at those people that are involved in this. So these are the 4 pillars, as you know, as you discussed this morning, of public sector reform in Scotland. Partnership, I believe, is now place, but it's still all about partnerships with each other and with the community. And then everyone, that's all about people. It's about people delivering, and it's about people getting the services they need and actually being empowered to do things for themselves. So it's absolutely all about people. But what are the people doing at the moment who are in the roles within local authorities and the wider public sector with a backdrop to this transformation agenda? Well, this is from a fictitious council that I made up called Ouija Borough Council, because I'm from Glasgow, but I love my Edinburgh people too, so Ouija Borough. So in Ouija Borough Council, there's a heck of a lot happening, isn't there? Okay? Lots of people doing lots of stuff within their own groups, within their organisation, and partnership working in the community and with the legislators and regulators. And what they're doing, they're planning, they're consulting, they're advising, they're inquiring, they're monitoring. And what's happening in all of this? Information is passing between them, it's having to be captured, it's going to be reused later on, it maybe has to be used as evidence, so we need to know that it's got integrity, that it is what it says it's going to be, and fundamentally important. And to my mind, those two things, the people and the information, are utterly the heart of making successful transformation, because that's actually what it's all about. And if you look, for example, in terms of open data principles, although there's lots of this is about technology, ultimately the technology is there to enable the data and the information to be able to deliver what it needs to deliver within whatever context that is. So ultimately, it's so exciting what can be achieved, and it's being achieved in some places. We can do even better, and sometimes it doesn't work so well. So ultimately, and I hope you like my groovy diagram, it's becoming really, really hard to get things to put into your presentations. So I've now discovered, as I'm sure you agree, I'm clearly an artistic genius. So this is heart. People are at the heart of this. And what's the information? It's the lifeblood. So that'll be the old veins and ventricles and stuff, all that information going out. That's what this is all about, right at the core of what we're trying to achieve. But what happens when they're not at the heart of it? Actually, it ends up being the reverse of what we're trying to achieve. Instead of having smarter working, it's kind of stupider working. Instead of empowering people, it will disempower them. Instead of having digital continuity, it will be discontinuity. Now, I'm painting a black picture. That's a new word that I've invented. A black picture there, and absolutely there's really, really good stuff happening out there. And sometimes these things happen not because people aren't doing the right things, but because it's stretched, and it's because we're not joining up the dots between the information side and the business side. So let's look at this. Let's look at the challenges in terms of people and information, in terms of helping to deliver Scottish public sector reform and transformation. And I said it challenges, but you know what? The challenges are the requirements. So it's like doing the whole functional spec. You've got to have the requirements for the people, and the people are the people employed to do the work, and the people who are actually the end result, the outcomes, the people that you're actually doing it for. So rather than challenges, I'm saying requirements. So we're going to look at some of the challenges here. And basically the backdrop is, if we spot that those are challenges, then they go into our spec from the very start of any transformation project. Those bits are in there. It's a strange echo in the room. I don't know if you can hear it. So one of the biggest challenges is you're delivering national policy across this pyramid of different cultures and different people. And at the end of the day, that's really, really difficult. And I think we can think an example that's happening right now in terms of the general data protection legislation. Now, that has been in the can for a long, long time. And one of the biggest challenges is you've got all these different countries with a different sort of flavour and perspective on data protection and privacy, and melding that all into one in order to deliver that pan-European regulation, that is challenging. And I think there is an analogy there between that and what we're trying to do in Scotland from a national perspective, actually getting to deliver it into different sectors within the public sector. So what do we have when we're delivering this transformation agenda? We're delivering it in lots of different flavours of type of organisation, different priorities, different standards of how we work, even in terms of information classification from a securities perspective. They'll have different flavours in one organisation to another. So when you come to pull together to do big data and open data projects, you need to make sure there's some kind of rationalising those standards. So that's a challenge. It's about making sure that you're translating what's needing to be done into the culture of the organisation that you're working with, and also how those different cultures work together if you're going to do it in partnership. And actually, underneath all of that, we also have individual personalities. In my experience over many years of working with information to help deliver business change in organisations, I have spotted information characters. And if you don't actually play ball with those and understand them, then sometimes things can go a bit awry. Because at the end of the day, if we're not getting that kind of infrastructure in place and involving people in it, they will revert back to those information personalities they've got. So I'd like to introduce them to you. So basically, information is really important to people. They're passionate about it, and how they work with it is a very personal thing too. Now, I don't know if people in the audience are immediately spotting. What people tend to do is they spot people that they know, and sometimes they spot themselves in that list. So we've got Claire Chaotic, who's the person who you go into the office, and clear desk policy is anathema to her, because there's stuff everywhere. And when you go digital, do you know what? You go into Claire's office, oh, it's looking really neat and tidy. Claire, that's grand. But you've not looked inside her shared drive, her 25 layers down. You've not seen the memory sticks that she's, dropped as she's walking down to the bus. That's Claire Chaotic. And then we've got Colin Clearout, who is really the reverse of Claire, and does feng shui, and clears things up, not necessarily because they need to be cleared up, because he wants a nice space. I'm not going to go through all of them. I like Tommy, because I went to school with Tommy Top Secret, and some of you did too. So I'm sitting there, I'm not even in a test or an exam, and I'm having a wee look to see what Tommy's doing, and Tommy goes like that. And he's not going to let me see anything at all he won't share. And then he grows up, and then he goes into your organisations, and then he says, I don't want people to see my stuff. I'm going to password protect every document I've got, regardless of whether or not it needs to be. And that's bad enough. And then he leaves the organisation. And I need that blanking document, and I can't open it. That's our Tommy. So every one of those people have characteristics, and they often manifest themselves in a negative way. But you can flip that on its head. You can start to see the strengths of those individuals, how you can use them to make change in the organisation that's going to be more comfortable, and they're going to be at the heart of actually delivering that improvement. I am now going to breathe, otherwise I'll not finish my presentation. Oh, that's really weird, sorry. Right, I mustn't do that breathy thing. Right, so there's our information personalities, right? So they're busy doing their own thing, and then, dun, 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 change comes along. So not only do they have information personalities, they've got information change personalities. And I've had them all in many a workshop, and I can spot them a mile off. So we've got Bertha, who's really trying not to fall asleep. We've got Ivan, who, do you know, he's saying, what the heck am I doing here? It's got nothing to do with me. And then we've got Scarlett. I go sometimes into sort of data protection stuff, and Scarlett, she is awfully scared, because she thinks I'm a big scary woman, and this is very scary stuff. Sid's cynical, I totally understand, because he's been down that road before. We've done that big EDR, Electronic Document Records Management System project, and it totally failed, and I don't want to hear any more of it, so I am utterly cynical. And then we've got Edward, and I love Edward, obviously. Edward's my local hero, my power user, my champion, because he does get it, and I can use him to get the message out. So if Edward says it's actually going to be fine, it'll be fine, as opposed to that weird, scary woman that's just been talking to us. And you also get team information change personalities. Every single area of work that I work in, they're all special and they're all different. And it's just trying to understand that that's what people are going to be like, and putting in tactics to turn that, instead of being the challenge, to your advantage, to get something. Because ultimately, do you know what? All of us people, this is what all of this is about. You know, you might all work in your local organisations, you're also citizens. So the people part of it and understanding the personalities is really, really important. Forgetting to breathe again. So basically, we have to think about change and how the impact is going to be on people when we do these projects. And if we actually think about that, involving them from the start and working with them all the way through, then actually we're going to get better results. And better results is good for everybody. So which is why I say a stitch in time saves time. So it's the things that you can maybe think about doing to support that change and to absolutely exploit the people and their strengths, and indeed the information and its strengths, rather than it being the challenge, the difficulty. So I have a few kind of examples to give you all. One of the things, so you work with a group and they do it brilliantly, you know. They get the users involved from the start. They test things out. They work how long things take. They do all that, they do the lessons learnt report, they create the template pack, and they pass it on to the next service or team within the organisation. Unfortunately, that then becomes a freebie. So that next team isn't bought into it, they haven't felt some of the pains of it. It's also not been applied. It's like a template, one size fits all. It doesn't. If we think back to the different cultures we looked at earlier on, there's different cultures within the different services within local authorities, just as much as there are within those wider sectors. So it's making sure that you have a template approach, but you've put in that effort to make sure it's flavoured to suit the next party while still being consistent. And those lessons learned, I've seen loads of really great lessons learned, but from what I can see, the achievement was right in the lessons learned report, not actually taking the lessons that were learned and feeding it back in and improving that template. It's also about trust, because this is a scary thing. People are working so damn hard. They're trying to deliver those services we're talking about. They have to batten down the hatches and focus specifically on the things they've got to do. And yet they're also being expected to change when there's no extra resource to do that. That's really, really challenging to somehow try and break down that kind of isolated position they can feel in. It's all about, totally about listening rather than talking, which is ironic given I won't shut up. Hey. So it's all about listening. It is totally about managing expectations and not going in saying, it's the dream world, we're off to utopia. Nor is it saying, this is going to be a complete nightmare. It's about getting something that's real. And by involving them at the start, then you're more likely to find real, because you've got real written into what you're trying to achieve. Totally empathising. People make real major assumptions, and when you kind of know what you're doing, you kind of just think, people, oh, common sense says, we're going to introduce a new system, we're going to put stuff into it, and obviously the security levels will be appropriate to whatever that information relates to from a business context. And yet the number of people have said to me, we can't use that system because everybody will see everything. You know, so we can't assume that people will think, yes, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. I always assume nothing. I think the negotiation is important as well, because there are some things that are just no-nos, they are not negotiable, but other things are. So by being able to have, like, being able to help someone in this area and supporting them and say, yes, we can change it for you, that's fine, they're then more likely to accept the bits that are not negotiable. And the local champion thing, who was Edward Enthusiastic, if you remember, you met him earlier on, he's cool, because that's, again, it's about taking what needs to be done, and they put it in that context, and they've got that trust within their teams. It's also about light bulb moments. It's all, this is one of the things that's really funny, because people will say things that are clearly at odds with each other. So, for example, they say, I need to access the stuff so I can go on and do it, but I don't see why I have to let other people see what they are doing. That didn't make sense at all either. I shall try that again and we'll slow down. So, they will say, I'm not letting anyone see my stuff, but they will also say, I need to see that person's and that person's, because we work together, and it's actually not my information, it's shared information. They'll say, I don't know, fill metadata in, and yet they send out 8,000 emails every day, which in itself is a problem. Filling in metadata, they're putting in their names, they're putting in the title. That's metadata. And when they suddenly think, well, it's actually not that scary, unless, of course, you make them have to fill in 15 mandatory fields. That's the problem, obviously. But it's just getting them to get the realisations themselves, rather than you saying to them, this is how it's going to be. And also, I think training support is really important. I've worked in a number of projects where there was lots of training that was going to happen, and then for budgetary reasons it was decided that was going to be cut. And then it's just, it's a false economy. It's a totally false economy. You can get really, really excellent systems, but you have got to put the effort in up front to get people to understand that tool and to use it for them as a tool to do their jobs. And so making sure, for example, it's not one generic training course that everybody gets. You make it role-based. Also making sure you have it at the right time. Not having it 2 months before the system gets put in, because by the time it comes in, they cannot remember how it actually works. And also doing follow-up training at different flavours, because some people will just get it and they'll be off, others may struggle a bit. And people will say, that's huge amounts of money when I can't do it. There are smart ways of doing it by doing little pockets, maybe as part of meetings or anything else. There are ways of applying some of those principles without it costing huge amounts of money. And actually, in the long run, if you then have your technology, which is delivering all the things that we want to deliver, and it's working successfully, then that money was incredibly well spent, because it's because you've got that training in place correctly at the beginning. Another one is the whole this kind of change is always seen as it's big and scary and awful. It's called, like, I just think it's got bad street cred. It's a little bit actually like, in terms of information management, information governance, it's got bad street cred too. So it's about trying to find ways of making it look appealing and exciting and positive by putting it utterly into context. And it totally is. It is the way to tell them. You have to go and you have to do things like you find the compelling stories. This is one that I use lots and lots and lots. So when I come in, we need to start to improve how you're managing your records, and it's partly for legal reasons, and not because it's a compliance tick box, but actually because it affects people's lives fundamentally if we don't keep our records properly. And never mind at that very high level. Also, just from day to day, if you manage your information better, you're going to save loads of time, because you're not losing 5 minutes there not finding something, and you're not wasting this amount of resource because you've just sent a 10 megabyte file off to 50 people by email, and it had personal information in it. So it's about making sure you're putting it into context and telling that compelling story and getting people passionate, because you're talking about their world and what they do. That's why we're delivering it. And ultimately, so I quite like this privacy by design concept. To my mind, it should be people by design. We get people from up front, and hey, we're back to Heather's artistic creation. And if you want T-shirts printed, let me know. I'm sure I can do them at a really, really good price. I like this privacy by design concept, as I say, and I'm sure we can broaden it out. And obviously, privacy is part of that, but it should be people at the heart of it, people by design. And finally, I do something. I rewrite lyrics to songs to make up information. And lots of people, including someone I spoke to 10 minutes before I came in, went, oh, that's really cringy. And I know for some people, they find that really cringy. But I don't mind, because they remember it, because it was pure dead cringy. And other people really like it. So in this instance, obviously, the title of my talk was I've Got You Under My Skin, because it's about making sure that that people are under the skin of the change you're doing. And it's under the skin, not in an itchy, uncomfortable, very, very nasty way, but like a glove, smooth and beautiful and amazing. So ultimately, I'm not going to sing it, and I'm not going to ask you to sing it, but really, we want people to get change under their skin. Thank you very much. Ooh. So, I should have probably checked beforehand, realised that water was sitting over there. Is there time for questions, or will I just slope off? Oh, sorry. Hello. Have you got any questions? Has anybody got any questions? And don't rush all at once.
Sorry, the lights are a bit bright up here. I can't actually see anything. Question down at the front. Could you wait for the mic, please?
You talked about the different information personalities.
Yes.
I was wondering what tactics or strategies you use to get those different personalities to embrace the change.
I think I try to, because for every problem that's out there, it's maybe unfair to call people a problem, but sometimes they can be. All of us have personality traits. And those traits have got positives and they've got negatives, and we're trying to focus on the negative aspects. It's about trying to flip it on the other side of it. So with Tommy Top Secret, for example, it's about totally empathising with him about really important it is that, you know, things are kept secure where they have to be, but also trying to develop that theme and let him understand, I guess, what happens when the consequences of what he's actually doing, and putting him into the position of somebody else. So they have the irony that he might have come across somebody else's document at password protect and say, what are they doing, password protecting document, I need to see it. And then suddenly light bulb, we'll actually go on with that. I think part of it also is, it's been a really challenging thing up until recently, because sometimes, particularly like complicated systems, it made it really hard for people to work. Now we're being able to have more sophisticated systems that can take a lot of the rules away from people having to do them manually. So like Tommy actually can't put the password in the first place now. So it really is just about trying to take another spin. Was one, Sarah Squirrel, never talked about Sarah Squirrel. So Sarah Squirrel squirrels everything away, and everybody loves Sarah because they can't find anything, they go and see Sarah. So Sarah is extremely threatened when something like this happens because she sees that maybe that power is going to go. But if you get her involved in it, again, looking at what are the things that people are always asking you for, you know, it's basically just trying to accentuate the positive aspects and eliminate the negative. I hope that helps. My answer is as long as my presentation, I'm sorry.
So I love your personalities. I always have loved your personalities.
Oh,
I love your personality, actually.
Oh, bless you.
But what I was going to ask you was about professional culture. So there's people culture,
Yep.
but there's also professional culture. And sometimes they go hand in glove, sometimes they don't. So how do you deal with things like the accountancy culture and the lawyers' culture and the ones who are intransigent because of their work and they have good reason because of the rules around their work?
I think for that, it's always about, this is where the listen thing comes in. It's about getting them to talk. And as they're talking, I sometimes call myself a business therapist, you know, like lie down in that darkened room and talk to me. And they'll tell me stuff that I don't really need to know about. But as they talk, they will start to mention things that I know that I can help them resolve. And once I get that and they say, oh, do you know, that's really, really good that can actually change, then they get my trust and then they're getting a benefit out of it. And that's also that bit what I said about negotiation. They'll be then more inclined to go slightly against their discomfort because they're getting the other aspects of that. You're welcome. Is it time for me to leave the stage? Sharp exit left. Right, right. Yes?
To the mic, a bit too close, I think. Heather will be joining the panel session at the end of the day, so there'll be other opportunities to ask her questions if you have them at that point. We're now...
Goodbye.
Oh.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks again. Sorry.